Hi, it's Gadget UK here again. As you can see, this time Spectrum Plus 2. Now this is the A model, it's the black one. It's the one I've shown previously on my channel here is the grey, the original, just straight Plus 2. So the icons for the cassette deck are on the top here instead of actually on the buttons. It's not ejecting very well, it's not shutting very well. You can tell, well, I noticed straight away this has suffered some trauma. Just look around the back here, we've got a piece missing. Now I've unscrewed the lid, I'll take it off, show you inside. Pretty dirty. You can see lots of the posts have broken off. I've got some of the bits of plastic, not all of them, there's a crack there as well I think. So, and it's got the DIN smashed off the back there. It did come with a power supply, but the cable has been wrenched off the end there. So yeah, I don't hold high hopes for this. I'm suspecting this has been skipped, and that's how the cables got damaged and the impacts have happened. And then someone's took it out of a skip. So there's a chance, like I say, it's got a fault as well as all of this cosmetic stuff. And you can also see, if you look at the keyboard here, you can see it's been a bit bent, like it's been pressed about this point here from the underside. So we might have a keyboard issue as well. I'll need to take that out, straighten that up a bit, because it clearly is bent there. It's very dirty. Yeah, almost as bad as that CPC 464 I looked at. And we've had some corrosion. As you can see, the modulator's a bit rusty here. That makes me think it's been in a skip, it's been out there, it's got some moisture in this area here because of the crack. That's where the moisture's gone in. It doesn't seem to have gone anywhere other than on the modulator and just down here a little bit where that resonator is. I think that's a crystal resonator, that blue device down there. Yeah, so most of the things on this are socketed by the looks of things. Is that the RAM or something? I'm not sure. Down here, I suspect it probably is. I can't see anything on there actually in terms of marking. It says AMS X something, X3, X4 is it? AMS X4. No idea what that is. It looks like it's Amstrad branded or something, but I'm suspecting that's the RAM actually. I think we've got 64K, might be wrong. Yeah, there's your TEA 2000, is that your encoder? That's just a HC something or other, 00, is that something? I can't read that. A TCL Logic, yeah, that's your AY sound chip. And then we've got two what look like ROM chips here, your Z80. Yeah, and you've got your gate array here in the middle. This is new, this little ASIC on these versus the old one at the DIP ULA. So you've got your ULA in there, combined with some of the other logic that was on the board as well. Because I think there was another one or two sort of large chips, sort of 28 pinish. Those aren't on here. There's one up here on a Plus 2 for the controller inputs and stuff. I don't see that anywhere, so I'm guessing that's merged with this as well, but primarily ULA. So it came with the power supply as well, and again this sort of supports the tale there of what's happened to this, why I think it's been skipped. I think that's how the cable has come off, because if you look at the back end here where the mains lead goes in, look at that, that's been pulled out as well. It just suggests it's been thrown into a skip, lobbed or something, someone's yanked it out, and the wires come out there. Could be wrong, that could have happened at a previous day and time. We won't know really until we get a new DIN on here, but that's the next port of call. I'm going to get a new DIN. I mean, I've got the old one in the back of the system there. It's not got housing, but I could pull that out if I've not got one of the exact type, with the right pins and the pin alignment there. But that's what I'll do. I'll just cut this back a little bit here, strip off, cut the ends off, strip them down, because some of these are a bit worn. As you can see, there's a bit hanging off there like that. So yeah, I'll probably just chop the end of that off, strip it down by I don't know, an inch or something, or 3/4 of an inch. Well, perhaps not that long, doesn't need to be that long for the DIN, half an inch, and then just join it up to a DIN, and we'll just see what happens. Does it, is this Plus 2 actually working or not? So I'll pull the old DIN out. I'm getting deja vu again here. This is what we had to do with the TG16. That had an AV connector like this. Well, it's not an AV, is it? This one, this is the power supply, but it had a similar connector like that stuck in the back there. So yeah, I mean, it's a shame about that. If it wasn't for that there, I'd feel a bit more positive about this, because the pillars inside can be put back on. Most of the screws were in, so and it can be cleaned up. All these marks and things, I'm pretty sure will come off. It will come up pretty good. I mean, it's a little bit scratched there, but by the time I've cleaned that all up, I'm sure it would have looked really good actually. So I mean, I could always cover this with something, I don't know. I'm tempted to get the Dremel out and cut up to about there, you know, smooth the edge down there, and do a similar thing cut up to here, and then maybe fill this with something, you know, stick a piece of ABS or something in there, maybe even stick some sort of mod there, you know. I could do the stereo mod to this, you know, and stick the connector there for that, put a switch, you know, at least it'd look more presentable. Certainly if this edge here is smoothed down a bit, so that as you see it from the front there, can you see it looks a little bit rippled here? At least if that was totally smooth, it wouldn't look too bad. All these little marks and things should come off, you know, there's white marks and things here. You can touch up these with just a touch-up brush, actually, you know, for car alloy wheels. I've got like a silver from when I used to have an MX-5. It's like a titanium silver, and I use that on my Plus 2, and it looks just the same. It's an identical match. It looks good as new. So, you know, you could just touch up the edges there where it's chipped off. And I did a similar thing with the red. I didn't show it, but I've done that on mine as well. Again, got some red acrylic hobby paint, some white acrylic hobby paint, mix it together so you get the same sort of pinkish red there. It's like a light red, isn't it? And just touch up the edges or paint over it entirely. You've got to make sure it doesn't leak. You don't want it going into the gaps and things, but you can make this, you know, that you can tidy these up so that it looks good as new. Actually, a bit of plastic cleaner on there, and it is just soap and water, you know, for the most part. Really, it's just a question of what damage has occurred with the keyboard. Does the keyboard work, because it's got that bend in it, and does the system itself actually power on? So this is from the back of the Plus 2 here. So got as we look at the connector here, let's think about this. Yeah, we're dealing with the back of the connections there. That's why I was trying to go for the back. It makes it dead easy. So as we look at it like that, you know, it's minus 12, plus 12 on the left hand side, plus 12 on the bottom, centre pin ground, and then 5 volts on the 2 right hand pins there. As we look at the back of that. So all I'm doing here is just scoring with the cuts here around the circumference, and then if we try and grab it like this, yeah, that was pretty thick. So now we've done that, I think we'll snip off the ends of these here because they're all a bit mangled, and I think that should be long enough. We don't need a masses of length there. We just need, you know, enough distance so they can all fit there like that. So that's about the right length we want, I think. Yeah. And if we just separate all these, make sure that they're not touching. And as I say, you know, the ground is going to be an obvious one. I think that's going to be, you know, the braid there is going to be a common ground, hopefully. And I would hope that the black is going to be a ground as well. We can perhaps test continuity first on the meter, just to see if any of these are paired up, you know, if any of these are joined together inside the power supply. I would hope that the ground, you know, the shielding there, the braid, is joined to the black. That would give me a high level of confidence that's the ground. And then what we're looking for is, you know, plus 5s, minus 12, plus 12. So as you can see, I've stripped the wires ends down there, just twist them, just to make sure, you know, the strands you know, twisted around each other to make it easy to solder and to fit into the DIN there. Appreciate some of these are a bit longer than others, but they'll be trimmed down so they're all about the same length. And I'm going to tin these up with some solder, and then I'm going to put this on before I forget, before we do any solder work. But then it should just be a case of joining this up. Now I'm guessing, just looking at this now we've cut the ends off, which we're dirty, we can see clearly we've got 2 reds, 2 yellows, black, blue, and you know, the braid. So I'm guessing the braid and the black are going to be ground, the 2 reds are going to be plus 5s, the 2 yellows are going to be plus 12s, and the blue is going to be minus 12. So I think, it seems logical to me, if they've had any sort of common sense, that's exactly what they'll have done. So it should be, hopefully, straightforward. So I appreciate it's at a distance and you can't really see much, but it is just literally a case of, let's say, just getting some solder containing flux on these to tin these up. Yeah, so maybe it is just the power supply, maybe that was all that's wrong with this. I'll show you on a meter here. So the 5 volts is showing 1.7, plus 12 is showing 4, I think. Let's just check the other yellow, is that plus 4? Yeah. So I'm pretty sure we're correct here with regards to the colour, you know, the colour of these wires and what the, you know, the voltages are. So we'll tear down the power supply next. So to get in the power supply, it's just 4 Phillips, you know, crosshead screws in the corners. Is that going to come apart now? Yeah, there we go. Weighs a ton. So I don't see any immediate issues there, I don't think. There's a fuse there. Those could be a common source of failure on these. I mean, I'm guessing, if I'm honest, just looking at this, it's going to be capacitor issue, most probably. Now, there does look to be a regulator down there. I don't know what that is. Is it a 5-volt regulator or something different? No idea. But there's one on that side as well. So, yeah, I'm guessing the caps, actually, if I'm honest. But at least while we're here, we can fix this cable. You know, feed it back through the grommet here. I mean, the wire's actually alright. It's just come through the, you know, it's been pulled through, that's all. So I pulled it out of the housing there. There's no screws or anything holding that in. The other thing I've done, I'll show you down here, I trimmed off the bit of the frayed thing there. So what I'm going to need to do now is I'll perhaps get some WD-40 in there just so I can slide this grommet. And I'm going to slide it all the way over that, and then just put the excess wire inside here. I might even trim it off and solder it back onto the transformer here, you know, just remove an inch or two there. But the other obvious thing, the fuse, I've just took it out, it had blown. I could see there was a gap in the middle, you know, having an inspection closely there. I think that's a transistor or something down there. It could be a regulator, I'm not sure. But I suspect that's what it is. I suspect the fuse has gone. Well, we know the fuse has gone, the fuse is blown. So if I stick a new fuse in there, and I'm going to just power this up and just see what happens. I'll stick it back in the case first, I think, before I do that. So I might just deal with that first before we power it on. Right, so I've got another 3.15 amp fuse in there. You're not going to believe it, it needs a new fuse holder. Despite the fact I took that fuse out really carefully, as soon as I put the other fuse in, one of the contacts on one side is like really flaky. I'm like, what's going on here? I'll show you in a minute. The fuse holder is broken. But yeah, +5 on the red, on the yellow, +12. And on the blue, sorry, I'm getting a tingle there because I've obviously got my finger on both connections at the same time, -12. So yeah, the power supply is alright. It probably does need a recap. I'll do that in a later video. I haven't sorted out that cable relief yet, so I need to sort that. But at least it's working. I do need to deal with the fuse holder though. So I'll see if I can show you the issue with the fuse. The way I pulled it out is like this. Just use some of those. Can you see it's moved already? See this here, watch. Look at that. That's on its last legs, that. So I'm not sure if the fuse has been replaced before. Maybe someone did it when the power supply lead broke. I've got no idea. But that is on its last legs. It's barely hanging on. That side's alright, nice and springy. But this side has had some sort of stress in the past. So probably from when it was replaced. It's really weird how you'd have this little board here for an additional fuse as well. And we'll just remove that fuse, and I've got some more fuse holders. I don't know whether they're going to have the right pin alignment here, but yeah, we'll soon find out. Yeah, so I got the old one off there. Just watch this. I bet you could do this with one hand. Look at that. See that? That's just one hand. Just like, look at that. Fractured. Broken. So yeah, I've got a replacement one on there. The just pinholes are exactly the same. You can see it's just holding it from the other side. Just need to solder that on. This is why I always salvage things from old power supplies and things. I think this one came from a power supply many years ago. I've got a bunch of them actually from a few different boards. So it's always worth removing things like fuse holders from old boards. So as you can see, I've replaced the fuse holder there, and I pulled this through here. It was really difficult. Now it's frayed. This grommet is frayed all up this end here, so it's just going to slip back out again. Or at least fray at this point here. So despite having pulled it back a good ½ centimetre there into the housing and trim off some of the plastic and stuff, I've just put a couple of cable ties there just to hold that on the outside, just to stop it fraying again. What I should do really is desolder the wires, pull off the grommet, put a whole new grommet on. I might do that later. It's not absolutely essential. What I really want to do is get the +2 up and running at this stage. So just checking the plug here, you can see, yeah, that's not too bad, I don't think. It's a bit extended there on the copper strands there. Let's just check the live. Yeah, it looks alright. Cable relief's alright. 5 amp fuse. I'm not sure it needs a 5 amp fuse. I think 3 amps sufficient. So that just looks a little bit high to me. I'll try it with the 3 amp. Hopefully it won't blow. So we're all plugged in after the fuse holder change there. As you can see, yeah, -12 +5, and try not to short these. +12. And as I say, let's get the housing on before I forget. because it's an absolute pain when you solder all your wires on and you forget. I won't make that mistake with this one. So as you can see, some of the world's crustiest solder in there. What I would say is use heat shrink. Absolutely use heat shrink on this. I've ordered some because I haven't got any of the right size. I'm going to redo this when I come to recap the power supply. You don't want to risk any of these coming off at any point and shorted, because you've got plus 12, minus 12 there. You don't want to go anywhere near the 5 volt rail, because you will destroy the system. So as you can see, power light's on, so I'll just search on the TV here and see what we can find. So as you can see, it's actually working, and the RF's awful. That's as good as it'll tune in. That's going to be the corrosion there in the modulator, I think. So what next? Well, I've got a few thoughts actually. Firstly, obviously RF is awful. The modulator is pretty rusted, I think, and we've got a crack in the case there. So I think what we should do, a piece missing. We should remove the modulator. I was looking at this screw mount here. Can you see? We've got a little screw mount. That's going to be really useful actually, to stick a screw. If we mount a little plastic piece inside of ABS here to cover the gap, and I trim the edges that to make it square on the top and flatten it down so it looks nice and tidy on the top part of the case. That will be a good screw mount for one side of it, and then I can just mount the other side perhaps through the edge of the case there, plates to cover the hole. And then I'm going to stick left, right audio and 3 phonos, one for composite, one for left, right, to make use of that space, to fill it, to make sure it's there's no gap there really. We'll remove the modulator. We're going to need to amplify the composite signal. Now this doesn't give out composite. That's one thing I've just tried. I tried my composite lead, and there's no signal. I thought, what's going on here? So that's when I went away to look at the pinout and realised there's only composite sync along with the RGB and the brightness pin or whatever the hell it is on there to give you RGB. So looking at the data sheet of this chip here, I think pin 6 is the composite video. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I've tested around. I tested some of these resistors and caps and things around here. I was trying to find a short. I forget where it is now. Is it that's there? That side of that diode. The anode of this diode here. So now usually you've got the audio merged with the video signal somewhere before it goes to the modulator. Yeah, it's down here. It's that cap. So the cathode side of that diode, you've got a little cap that joins the audio. So because we've got a diode here, there shouldn't be an issue. We should just be able to join a wire to the points there. Let me zoom in just so you can see a little bit closer. Yeah, hopefully you can see that diode just about there. So this side of this diode here is a short to pin 6. So I think if you join a wire from there to a little amplifier board, I've got one of the ones that I use with 2600s and things like that. It's just got I forget what it is now. A general purpose, 2N3904 or so, I can't remember what it is now. General purpose transistor there for amplifying video signals. I usually use that board with let's say composite mods. So we can take the composite from there, stick it into that little board. It just needs power and ground, which we can be able to tap off from wherever the modulator takes its power and ground from, somewhere nearby, probably one of these connections on the sides. Remove the modulator, clean up the board. I think we'll swap out these caps because there's not very many. There's only 5, I think 5 electrolytics on here, or 6 maybe. So we'll swap those out as well. They look a bit crusty. This one's got that horrible mark down the side of it, like it's been gouged or something. We need to clean up, the board. There's corrosion here on this oscillator. There's strange things been going on. I don't know whether someone's soldered around here. It looks like they have. It could just be corrosion on the solder point there. But look at these here. It's like, this is a bit how you doing. Like, what on earth's going on here? You see that? Look at the legs on that. Yeah, strange things have been afoot on this board. I'm not quite sure why someone would trim that resistor off and then soldered it back. Is it a resistor? Can't see now. Could be a diode or something, or an inductor. I can't actually see without zooming in, but yeah, I mean, it looks like a resistor at a distance. That it's just strange how it's got these really weird. That leg there is overshot. It's going over the connection, and the same here. They're soldered on the top side. So what on earth? I ain't got a clue. I might just have a look to see which factory mods need to be done to these. I wonder if someone's done an aftermarket mod to this to improve the video or fix a video problem or something, maybe even a fault. Very strange. And I think finally, once we've cleaned up, I'll get a heatsink onto the gate array here, and perhaps on the CPU as well. I mean, there's nothing else on here really that I'm not fussed about. That could die. Maybe we'll get one, you know, I've got a spare one. Maybe we'll just stick one on there as well, on the AY chip. ROMs and things, I'm not too bothered about things like this. You can always swap them out with EPROMs and things like that. So I've got the 6 screws out for the board. I've got my ESD underwear on. Let's just turn this over. Hang on, have a look on the underside. Yeah, you can see somehow soldering has been going on. Someone's been doing some rather interesting tinkering with this. You know, they've clearly reflowed that at some point and made an absolutely awful job of it. I don't know what on earth's happened there. Looks like we've got a small bridge or something there, maybe to fix a broken trace. Maybe this has had a fault and someone's tried to fix it. I don't know. It's very strange. I mean, those resistors there, you know, they've not even trimmed the legs off on the, you know, these haven't been took off on this side. So they did clearly just chop these on this side and then for whatever reason stick them back on, or stick some different ones on or something, I'm not sure. Those look like diodes to me actually, now I look at it. Can you see that? I'll zoom in a bit closer in a minute, but they don't look like, yeah, I think the diodes, it says on the board D something there, I think. Yeah, so I'll get the cotton buds out, clean this all up before I do anything else, I think. I'll tell you what, let's get the modulator off first. There's only a few connections. These ones might be a bit of a pain. I might need to get the desoldering station onto these ones here because of the, you know, large ground plane area here. It's going to absorb a lot of heat. But it's just the side connections. There's like 2 or 3, I think, down here. I think the socket could do with reflowing actually and straightening up, because can you see? Oh, it's not too bad actually when it's on the board there. It was in the case, it looked a bit bent. Yeah, we'll reflow it anyway because it has had a bit of a knock. Yeah, I suspected I was going to have to use the desoldering station for these connections here. Absolutely. Oh, come off it. Yeah, this is where sometimes an additional iron can actually help. My desoldering station on its own is perhaps not providing enough heat there. I hate it when they bend the pins over like this. This is absolute pain. Yeah, when they bend the pins over like this, it annoys the hell out of me, if I'm completely honest, because it makes it super hard to get things like this off the board. We need to lift that pin at the same time as you know, float the solder there. Yeah, so I've got most of it off there. I just need to try and bend that over a bit. Let's just have one more go, see if we can clean a bit more of the solder off there. And again, I'm going to use my other iron to help with this. There we go, most of the solder's off that. So there we go, it didn't take too long to get that off. It's come off okay. You can see the holes are cleared there. No corrosion underneath, which is the main thing. So it's like I say, I'll clean up with some cotton buds and stuff now, I think. Clean up these areas a bit, you know, just reflow that connection down, that crystal on the top side as well. And we'll start over here, because yeah, I'm just curious to see what this looks like around here actually. God, it's awful. Yeah, I think it's predominantly flux actually on that. Yeah, it's looking a lot better already. But I do think we should reflow that. I'm not going to leave that looking like that. It looks crusty and horrible, it really does. Let's just remove that excess. Yeah, we'll do that side as well, I think. Yeah, so that's barely making a connection. That makes me think it's not through the board right, actually. I suspect that's like almost surface mounted. Yeah, very strange. So all I'm doing on this side really is cleaning up any areas that need it, you know, where there's been manual soldering done. And I think we'll go over that gate array connections there as well, just to make sure they're super clean, because they're looking a bit either, you know, flux or something's on there. It looks a bit dirty. It's interesting how it's mounted that actually. It's like a normal quad flat pack, almost like 128 pin if I was to guess, but the pins are coming up the sides of the chip so that it can be mounted that way. This looks like the in fact it's just I'm just looking at this actually. It is just exactly, you know, a normal chip. It's just the way they mounted it is sunk into the board there. It's, you know, kind of inverse in its profile, because this is just the underside. There's no part number and stuff there. Part number's on the top side of the board. So yeah, it's interesting how they did that. You could have just surface mounted that on this side here normally, you know, instead they've stuck it underneath. It's a little bit odd actually, but I think that's 128 pin. It looks like it. It looks like the same sort of size as a SNES PPU, or in fact, there you go. That's from a PC Engine there. That's a HUC 6270. That one I repaired. Yeah, there you go, same profile, 128 pin I think. It is pretty dirty, this, you can see just from the area I've just done here. There's loads of muck coming off this. So the other thing we're going to do here is just scratch a bit of the ground plane off here, get some flux, scratch the can lightly there, and just very carefully join that up, actually put it flat on the board and just stick a little blob of solder. You don't need to do things like this, but I've started doing it actually. Ever since I had that problem with the Neo Geo there, I was like getting some jitter or something, and it's because the can wasn't grounded. So I'm going to join that up. And the one area I've not cleaned yet is this connector at the back, so I'll do this on both sides. We'll get an eraser on there, see if we can get those contacts coming up a little bit cleaner. And we'll do the printer port as well while we're here. Oh, it's filthy. And any large areas like this we can just go over with some IPA and a paper towel. Actually, it's the easiest way to get you know, large volume of dirt off. So we'll try the eraser here. We might have more success using a fiberglass pen actually, I'm not sure yet. Yeah, just wiping with a bit of IPA, that's a bit better. Not 100% better. So I'm just going to get the fiberglass pen on there as well, I think. Yeah, so we'll just go up and down these and just see what difference that makes. Yeah, that's bringing it off actually. You can see that those first few pins there are looking a lot cleaner actually. Yeah, you can see that's looking a lot better. So I soldered that earlier, tidied up these diodes a bit. Strictly speaking, I could just replace them, but I thought what I'll do is just trim off the extra distance of the legs there and just tidy up the solder points on both sides so they don't look too bad. But you see that I spotted down here a solder bridge between these two pins here. I'm not sure if that would be affecting anything or not. I'm not sure it's making a connection, but yeah, there's a piece of solder there. It's definitely been on there a while. It's not something I've just added on. So yeah, I'll remove that. It's looking very clean now though. I don't think there's much more to do than recap it and do the composite mod. So there we go. Now this might be temporary for the moment. Obviously I've just got, you know, a single video cable coming out the back. I'll perhaps do something else. And in terms of mounting the board, I might do something else as well. I mean, you can see it's upside down. It's held off by the transistor on the underside there, and the wires, I've used pretty stiff wires here. This is +5 down here. Composite into the you know, the composite would normally go into the modulator from that yellow wire. It's going into this little PCB, and I've just used the ground, but that's pretty stable, sturdy. So I could actually you know, just mount that you know, to some connector on a back plane or something inside there, and it should be okay. But just for testing purposes, we'll just leave it flying like that. I'm going to go connect it up and we'll give it a try. You can see I've got the heat sinks on the 3 chips there as well now. So I don't need to connect the keyboard up or anything at this stage. I'll just plug the power in and let's just see what happens. Wow, that looks awesome. So we've got the ghosting issue there, can you see that? We can do a mod, which I'll perhaps do in a minute. I've covered it in previous videos there. It was something that JoulesperCoulomb pointed out. You just use, I think, an inductor. Is it 15 microhenry? There might be a cap as well. And you stick them somewhere here, across the connections on the TE. Is it TA? Yeah, T2000 encoder chip here. So I've also done the JoulesperCoulomb composite ghosting fix mod actually, just a little inductor and a couple of caps in parallel. I'll post a link down below in the video description. I'll perhaps pin a comment as well, so you can watch that video and look at JoulesperCoulomb's original video there. I thought we'd take the lid off this modulator actually and have a look. You can see hopefully what's happened. Can you see how red or orangey the borders? You know, it's rust. You know, water settled in there, and it's like you know, iron. You know, we're going to have conductivity from the rust there. That's why the picture was just absolutely awful, to the point where you couldn't even have it. My TV wouldn't even lock onto it. Spectrums aren't usually that bad, so I figure we'll take the bottom off and see what the underside of the PCB is like, because we could probably just clean that up. You know, there's no electrolytics or anything there. I don't think there's going to be any faults or anything. I think if we could just soak the board maybe in some IPA for an hour or two or something, then I don't know, try and blow it down or something with a hairdryer or something, just to get the moisture out of there. It might be alright. I might just keep it as a spare or something. Not that I'm ever going to replace a modulator. I tend to remove the things. Try and find the gaps, get a screwdriver or something in there to prise it up a little bit. Sometimes on things like this, the solder, you know, there's a bit of solder on one side, but it doesn't seem to be the case with this. It's just held on by force, you know. Pull it off. Yeah, I mean, it's not too bad. You can see that it's not too bad there, so it seems to be just on the top side that it's dirty. Something else worth pointing out: when you stick a heatsink on here, don't press down from this side, because it's soldered on the underside. So the way I did it is, you know, I held it from underneath and you know, put pressure on that way, you know, holding the actual underneath of the chip, because, like I say, you know, it's soldered on the underside, so you could, you know, push it straight off, effectively break the traces and pads and things. So be super careful when you put a heatsink on there. So something else I did here as well, this grey cap here, can you see, one leg is lifted, C24 I think it is. I think that's where the audio's coupled with the video, because I'm using the composite out of here, where the modulator went. That's going to have the audio mixed with it. So that's why I've lifted one side of that cap, just so the audio's not coupled with the signal there. So I think what we'll do next is remove the keyboard, so we can clean out the case. You know, we'll remove the tape deck here as well. So it looks like just the screws in the corners here. We need to straighten the keyboard because it's bent, but also I can clean it at the same time. I'm not sure I'm going to pull all the keycaps off. You can, with a bit of effort, clean up these Spectrum keyboards, the +2 keyboards, fairly easily without removing all the caps, actually, just using you know, cotton buds, paper towel. It does take quite a while, but that, I think, might be the approach. You've got another pillar missing there, I think we have, because that's just going round and round and round. I need to probably remove the screws here holding this board on in order to get access to the screw that's under there, I think. Yeah, that one's loose as well. This has just been smashed to pieces, this system. Can you see that? Yeah, hopefully you can see that. Both of those have been shattered off. So in terms of the bend, it's not too bad. You can just see subtly, you know, here, it's been it's had an impact damage, which is probably why those support pillars have broke off, actually. So, you know, we can just literally just put it down like that and just put a little bit of force in that area until it straightens out. You can see that's not bad now, actually. It just needs a bit more here, I think. Yeah, I perhaps gone a bit too far there now, because that bit there's not straight. But yeah, with a bit of manipulation you can get that almost perfectly straight. Yeah, it's not far off. It still needs a little bit of a correction here, I think. So with these broken off pillars, best way to do it is get a screwdriver on one side and then your pliers on the other. So I think with these bits, the easiest thing to do is get some epoxy in there. I think that should work quite well with this, although it seems to be that kind of plastic that doesn't glue very well, so it might not hold. I don't know. I'll give it a try, see if that works. The other thing I could do is use the soldering iron and just touch around, just gently. You know, try and melt it in a few different locations around. You need to be careful, don't put too much heat, because you could go through and, you know, deform the other side. But that might work quite well as well. Yeah, I'll stick both those back on, I think. So we'll just get the cassette deck out now. It's just going to be all the supporting screws around the sides, you know, where you can see. Oh, that's not another one's broken. Yeah, that's another one's broken. I suspect as much because the buttons are quite low here. You know, when you press them, it feels like it's depressed. So yeah, it's suffered a lot of damage, this +2. So I've also got the power LED here that I completely forgot about. Let's remove that. Yeah, so you can see another broken support there. Good grief. I need to do that bit as well before I forget. Can you see that split there? So I'll do a similar thing. In fact, I think with that, because you can, yeah, I'm not sure. I might just get a tiny bit of super glue and then stick it together, but I'll do the same thing and I'll drag the soldering iron over there to melt the pieces back together on the inside. So just to be inconsistent and show you what I mean, you can see I've just touched the soldering iron a number of times across here. You don't want to go more than, I don't know, 0.5 millimetre or something, because otherwise you'll deform the plastic on the other side. But you know, that won't be visible from the outside of the case. That's the main thing. And it will, you know, as you can see, it's holding it together there. I mean, it might break fairly easily because it's not a particularly massive joint, but it does, you know, in this case, go all the way along the length of there. So yeah, I mean, there's not a lot else you can do. You could try and glue it and epoxy it, but I mean, that's a good technique, as I talked about my PlayStation, that recent PlayStation 2 restore I did. It's a good technique, you know, where you can get things to join without a seam, hold them together, and then just touch that from the inside. It's almost transparent. It leaves no you know, you don't get residue from glue or epoxy on the other side. But yeah, that was a good test. So now I can, like I say, apply that to each of the other things I've glued once the glue dries. So while our plastic part's all dry, I guess we can clean up the tape deck now. So yeah, cotton buds and IPA. And I'm just going to go over initially to collect all these bits of fluff and stuff and dust out of the mechanism here, because it is, look at that, really dirty. And we can always reintroduce grease wherever it's required. You know, some of these things look like they've got a bit of grease on, which is why this fluff stuck to them. I can always get some Mollycott on there afterwards. The main thing is to get all this dust off in the first instance, and fluff. It's thick. Yeah, this side's horrendous. Look at the state of this down here. Oh my god. I think this is the worst tape deck I've looked at so far. Oh god, that's terrible. Worse than that CPC by a long way. Ugh, look at that. I'll be amazed if this cassette deck kit was working as it was. So we'll just clean the heads up. I mean, I've not finished cleaning the mechanism yet. It's still very dirty. I'm going to go over with a bunch more cotton buds in a minute, but I figure we may as well get the heads out of the way here. Yeah, not too bad. It's a bit dirty. You can see there's a bit of dirt on there. That's the erase head. So then with the pinch roller, I always go over this with IPA. It does help, but if the roller's worn, it'll have a smooth surface. So you need to use a nail file or some lightly abrasive sandpaper. But you can see it's dirty. It's not just got black from the rubber, it's actual dirt is on that. But I'll go over it with some lightly abrasive sandpaper. It's almost like just a rough card, really, more than anything, just to give it a rough surface back. So hopefully you'll agree, this side now is looking a lot cleaner. It really is. I've probably got some Mollycott onto the teeth of these little plastic gears here, I think. Actually, feels like we've got a worn tooth or something stuck in the tooth or something there, actually, because your rotator, you get a bit of friction at certain points. So I'll need to inspect that. I think these are 80mm, these belts, aren't they? I can't quite remember now. There's something like that. It's pretty standard. The CPC's got the same belt as the Plus 2s. We'll see how it goes anyway. If we get any problems, I'll swap it out, but I think it'll be alright. I'm just trying to get all this stuff off here. It's really mucky. So I think with the buttons, we'll give them a bit of the IPA treatment here. I mean, strictly speaking, I should try and find a way to remove this whole assembly here, but you know, you can see we will be able to do this. It's just going to be time consuming. We should be able to get that stuff off the edge there. It looks like paint. Yeah, it's coming off. It's just, like I say, time consuming. You know, I need to get it in between the things here. Might need to get the cotton buds onto this as well, and give it a few goes to make sure we get all the dirt off. So there we go, buttons all looking super clean. I cleaned up around this area with a fiberglass pen as well, because there was quite a bit of corrosion down here. It just looked a mess. Looks a lot better now, I think. So the final thing I'm going to do now is just get, as I say, a bit of Mollycott here on these plastic gears. Yeah, a little bit around this gear, and then just wait for the case to dry, you know, the glue, so I can clean the case up. And in case you're wondering how to apply some of this Mollycott, the way I've been doing it is to get some on a cotton bud, and just get it so that it touches the teeth as you rotate it, and just move the cotton bud around to distribute it. And if you go round a few times, stick the cotton bud on it, actually rub it against the cotton bud, and then occasionally overlap on the top like that and rotate it. You'll get any excess off the you know, that's sort of coming up on the sides, and that's it. If you do that for each gear, you know, if you inspect closely, you'll see the mollycots on there, and it just runs a lot better. So I've done that on all of them. I did it on all 5 gears. You can see there. Yeah, so this is the total cheating way. I mean, the keyboard's not too bad actually. There was bits of fluff, you know, but that's all come out. So I can literally just use kitchen roll and stuff to clean this. It's nowhere near as bad as some of the keyboards I've seen on some systems. And then just slide it all up and down here, you know, with IPA. Make sure it's nice and clean. It does take a bit of time, but it's far easier than removing all the keys if the keyboard's not too bad. So I've took a few of these caps off just to see what it's like underneath, and it is very clean. You can see the G key here's got some paint on it, so we'll just get a bit of IPA onto the side, and hopefully you should see, can you see that's coming off? Yeah, any little paint flecks, and it's common, you know, people used to decorate their houses and get little bits of paint on these systems. It's not unheard of. I've seen it a number of times, bits of paint on things. I think when I was a kid, if my mum and dad had got paint on anything decorating, I'd have gone mental. I wouldn't have been pleased. Paint on my Spectrum, no thanks mum. So let's yeah, get that back on. So yeah, it looks a bit patchy, and it's the age-old thing that I've talked about before, black plastics. When you use IPA, you kind of go patchy. You just need to get some silicone back on them. Yeah, so all paint flecks cleaned off. I've cleaned in between all these keys, get a bit of silicone back on there. Just because I used IPA, and it leaves white patches on black plastic, but then the shine eventually wears off, but the white patches don't come back, as I mentioned before. I'm always covering the same things in a lot of my videos. It's the same old stuff really, just on different systems. But as you can see, that's looking pretty good actually. Squeeze the bits of tissue. So there we go, cassette deck back in there, the screws held fine, you know, didn't break at all, the mounts. Same with the keyboard. So we can now get this half back onto this half. So just testing here, there will be another part to this video, but I thought I'd just show you progress so far. You know, so the video's looking sweet now, that ghosting fixed down the composite, certainly done a bit, worked really well. I've ordered a little stereo board actually, from Bike Delight. That should be here soon. So I'll, you know, complete this in the next part. We'll get, you know, deal with that hole at the back there, and recap it as well. And I'm not sure, I'll think what else we can do as well.